Welcome to the Tech Leaders podcast. We have a highly distinguished guest this time around. This individual was very prominent in the dot-com boom of the late 90s. He set up iBazar, which sold to eBay in the early 2000s. He had a very successful career thereafter, probably the highlight being helping to grow Facebook mobile from 1 million users to 1 billion users alongside Mark Zuckerberg. He also had spells at Uber and is on the board of numerous companies, and he's a prominent tech investor across Europe. His latest venture involves electric scooters with a vision of cleaning up pollution in European cities. It is a truly remarkable venture and very exciting and ambitious. He talks about this candidly and it's value-packed from beginning to end. I thoroughly enjoyed this one and I'm sure you will. Hope you take as much from it as I did. It's Henri Moissinac. Henri, thank you for joining us on the Tech Leaders podcast. Really excited to get you on the show. I've not interviewed many guests with your list of credentials. You've worked for some of the biggest and most exciting and disruptive tech startups, to tech unicorns, tech businesses in the world, and obviously leading up to your current venture, which has got a really powerful environmental cause and something which I think we can all relate to. So really looking forward to diving into all that. But we'll do that in due course. So first of all, I just want to find out about Henri. Obviously, you, as we established, you were born in Paris. You're a true Parisian. You grew up in Paris. You went to university in Paris, and you went all the way to PhD level in computer science. And then you obviously embarked on a career in tech. So talk us through that upon leaving academia and that sort of initial couple of years when you moved into industry and your initial experience working for Thales and thereafter.
Hi, very nice to meet you. Thank you for the time. So I was finishing a PhD in computer science. I was doing artificial intelligence applied to image processing. It was a lot of fun, but I felt very lonely in my research lab, even if I spent a lot of time with other people. And so at the end of my PhD, a friend of mine told me, you should try something different. Why don't you go to Silicon Valley? Just hang out there. It's going to be such a different environment. So I went there for 9 months. 9 months was the maximum visa I could find. I found Yahoo, Cybercash. I found people trying to sell golf clubs on the internet. And I thought that was really, really cool.
What sort of year was this then?
1996.
Wow, so this was really early days of e-commerce then, yeah?
Exactly. And so I thought, this is really cool, this is what I want to do. I want to do consumer services. And since then, I've always focused on consumer services, thanks to tech. And so I stayed as long as I could in Silicon Valley. I went back to Paris when my visa ran out. And then I worked for Orange. Back then it was called France Telecom. And I started a business unit that was doing e-commerce back office services for small merchants. So I did that for a couple of years, and from there.
Sorry, this was iBazar then. Yeah?
It was called iBazar. Yeah.
I'm assuming. Sorry to stop you there. This is the company that was acquired by eBay. Is that right?
Yes, we were.
Sorry.
So we it's a consistent pattern with many. We tried to copy what the Americans were doing. Then we decided that what they were doing actually wasn't really great. We could do much better than them. So we did a long list of all the things eBay was doing right, all the things that we should be doing differently in Europe. And that's how we came up with the list of things we are going to do with iBazar. So we fought against the Americans for about a couple of years. We won the game in 7 countries in Europe and South America. And then they acquired us. And then on, I went back to California. And then California for 8 years.
So sorry, iBazar was based in Paris then, yeah?
iBazar was based in Paris, and we were operating in 7 countries in Europe and South America.
Right, so post-acquisition, you went over there.
I stayed a couple of years more in Europe, helped eBay with the integration, did other things. I did a bit of venture capital, and then I moved back to California. And the last thing I did at eBay was I started eBay Mobile. So that was before the iPhone. And we were starting to see people trying to access eBay through their mobile phones.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy. It was crazy back then, but we were convinced it was going to be possible. And then after a while, I met a young set of people that were starting Facebook. And I thought Facebook would be the biggest thing ever on mobile. So
and sorry, at what point in Facebook's development was this? How
it was
far?
2007. 2007. There were about 200 employees.
Oh, so yeah, it was really early then.
So I joined around Christmas time. I was the second employee working on mobile.
Wow. So
back then we had just a few mobile users.
Were you reporting into Zuckerberg then, or what?
I didn't report into Mark, but I worked very closely with Mark for about 2 years.
Okay.
We would see each other every week.
Wow.
And at the beginning, mobile was just a fun project inside the company. And little by little, it grew and became much, much bigger. And at some point, actually Facebook is Facebook mobile. And the desktop experience is just a consequence of the mobile experience. So I joined Facebook when we had just a few 100,000 users on mobile. And I left 6 years ago when we just had over 1 billion users. So it was quite fun. So many changes.
Wow, that's that's quite, that's obviously very life-changing stuff for you in terms of your career, I suppose, isn't it? Being involved in something as important as Facebook, I suppose. So what did you learn from that experience working, alongside Mark Zuckerberg, working on a platform which was essentially changing the world? What did you take from that?
So there's so many things, but the two things I remember the most. The first one is you have to believe. When I went to eBay and I convinced the leadership team to invest in mobile, a lot of them were not convinced. It was just not what they were doing every day. They saw all the business coming from desktop. You had to believe. You had to be very persistent. And when I went to Facebook, it was the same story. Back then, Facebook was very small as a company. There were so many priorities. Desktop experience was doing awesome. We were still very small compared to MySpace. You have to remember a context where MySpace is like 5 or 6 times bigger than we were.
Wow.
And in that world, you have to believe that. So I had to convince people that at some point in life, someday people will upload more than 1 photo per day on their mobile to Facebook.
Yeah.
Now it's so much more. Huh? But back then, it looked really big because at best people were uploading 1 photo a week on Facebook through desktop.
Yeah.
So you have to believe. And then the second thing, typically the more you believe, the more passionate you are. So the more it's easier to bring people around you that want to do the same thing. And then you get into this virtuous circle.
Yeah.
And then you have to be extremely consistent. It's a meticulous approach. It's a lot of execution. You need to have a very clear vision. You have to believe in your vision. But then you have to be an extremely well thought through strategy and execution plan. Because the more you execute, the more the little numbers they come here, 1% here, 2% there, 5% more.
Yeah.
The more then people start to believe, people that weren't believing, they start to believe it and it comes.
Yeah, so absolutely.
One year, we started the year, I think we had 18 million monthly active users on mobile. And
wow.
I said, let's do 100 million for Christmas.
Do you think that the mobile, or the strategy to pursue more mobile, which you were obviously involved with convincing Facebook on sort of putting their eggs in that basket, was that the primary driver to you surpassing Facebook and becoming the dominant social media platform? Did it accelerate that process, or were you already in front of MySpace by this time?
When we started investing on mobile, Facebook was much smaller than MySpace, and I think the way we did a better job at MySpace was really thanks to a much better desktop experience.
Okay.
I think mobile comes on top when it became making Facebook much more international. So for example, I remember going to Jakarta, to Manila to try to push Facebook mobile over there, and absolutely no one would use Facebook on desktop in these countries. It just started with mobile. So first, it makes the overall Facebook experience much stronger, desktop and mobile together. But then you go after countries where it's just going to be a mobile-first experience.
Yeah.
So at that point, and then little by little, the company doesn't talk anymore about desktop, doesn't talk anymore about mobile. It's just one experience altogether.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So you were at Facebook for 6 years then, yes?
6 years.
What prompted you? Why did the journey end in 2014?
So I moved back to London in 2012, and then I stayed for I think another year and a half or 2 years at Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I wanted to try something different. You know, when you're away from the mothership, from headquarters, you tend to have a different type of job. So I wanted to get back into something much earlier stage, and something that made more sense locally. And I thought mobility was a great space to be in. I mean, it's not rocket science to understand that the European cities, they don't look like the American cities. I grew up in Paris. I could never find a cab. When I was a younger student, going back home was a pain on Friday and Saturday. When I was a younger employee in Paris, I could never find a cab in the morning to go to the airport, just because where I lived. And so when I saw Uber, I was thinking, okay, Uber, we have to take this to Europe. It's going to change the world. At least it's going to change the European cities. And that's when I jumped ship from Facebook to Uber.
Right. Okay. So you saw the potential. You felt you'd taken what you were doing in Facebook to a certain point, and you were excited by the journey that Uber were on. Then,
yeah. I think these technology waves, these technology changes, they come in waves, and I had done, after 6 years, going from 1 million to 1 billion users, it was time to try something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Uber was a bit the same, in the sense that when I joined Uber, it was still a very young company. We were, I think, 700 something employees.
Most of which were based in Silicon Valley, I take it.
Most of
how many were in Europe at the time?
I don't know.
It was small, yeah?
Yeah, maybe 50, 60. And then we were riding a different wave. It's the wave of using permanent 4G connections to digitize the cars, expose that through an app, and we are recreating opportunities for end users. And the Uber experience was really magic. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, this is just going to work. But it was a bit the same as Facebook. People were saying, I'm not so sure. I remember the early days of Uber, there was a lot of criticism. It's because it's new, it's different. There are things that Uber did very well. There are things Uber did a bit less well.
Yeah.
But overall, it was this magic thing. I thought you have to believe again. And it's the same.
Yeah.
You have this vision. What the city is going to look like. Look at London today. Look at all these neighborhoods where there were just no black cabs, and nowadays you can find an Uber all the way to Slough.
I remember hearing about Uber quite early on, probably not far off the time you joined, and I really couldn't see how it could work because of the taxi, the black cab taxi industry in London, for example, to use that one, it was so long established that I just couldn't see how it could be disrupted. But then I think when I got my head around the fact that I think that the owners said that Uber wasn't a taxi firm, it was a technology firm who were sort of, and I think it was a different concept. And when I saw the quality of the application and how the real-time movement of the cars around the city, that's when I realised that this is probably gonna disrupt a lot of things, and it has. It's crazy, isn't it? It's had its challenges, obviously, but I think the app is the flagship of the company, isn't it? Would you agree? Is that?
Yeah, I think for all these things I got really lucky to play or participate with, you have to think what is going to be the end point, what's the vision long term.
Yeah.
And then it's easy to think, okay, it's all going to be mobile, not desktop for Facebook.
Yes.
It could be all e-commerce, and people won't be afraid of putting their credit card for iBazar.
Yeah.
In the case of Uber, in the case of Facebook, in the case of iBazar, because it's new, it's very hard for most of the average consumer to understand. And they see e-commerce, they'd rather go to the store. Mm-hmm. They see Facebook, they just rather, do photo sharing on the desktop as opposed to on mobile. They see Uber and they'd rather do a black cab because it just works. But you have to look at the long term. You look at the end point and then you try to backtrack, work your way. Go. How do you get from A to B to C to D and so forth? Yeah. You have to believe in the vision, and then you work the strategy to get there. And that's what gives you the energy to push through. And Uber was exactly that. I think most of my colleagues, among all the difficulties, the challenges with the taxi lobbies and things like that, they truly believed in the vision. They truly believed in the strategy plan, and that gave them the energy to go through this. Yeah, definitely. I interviewed the CEO of Gusto, the meal preparation service company, and he was talking about category marketing, which is essentially educating
your buyer persona towards your category. In their case, it was away from supermarkets and more into curated, delivered meals sort of thing, you know. So because the concept wasn't readily available or known in the UK, and that was part of the early challenge for them, you know. So I think with Uber it's quite similar because it's kind of a different experience of moving around, isn't it? Going from the taxi or the public transport to this kind of thing. But I think what you're talking about there seems to be, it's all about leadership, isn't it? I think having the vision and getting people to believe is about providing leadership. What did you learn? Were you working quite closely with the founders, like Travis Kalanick, is it? And you know, because these guys were obviously leading the business during the time you were there. What did you sort of see from them that was going to make this work?
So I was much more involved in the expansion across Europe, Middle East, and Africa than I was at San Francisco on the core product strategy or what the core leadership team would work on.
Right.
It's quite different. At Facebook, I was truly part of the core people that were thinking, where is this going?
Yeah.
At Uber, I was more into how do you deploy this across the world.
Right. Okay.
What I took away in both experiences is exactly what I just told you. It's like you have a vision most of the time because it's brand new. It's very difficult for most people to understand where it's going to go. But when you describe the vision, it feels obvious. And then there's a list of things you need to get there, and you just have to get at them one by one.
Right.
And
the
more you execute against that, the more typically you start to bring people around you, whether they're employees or customers or people that could, the press, people that want to invest. Even your own competitors, sometimes they start to copy what you're doing.
Yes, yeah.
And little by little, it's like a rising tide.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It changes everything. And now looking back, if you talk, I don't know if you have kids, ask your kids, can you imagine a world before Facebook? Well, they probably don't use Facebook, but before social networking, they would not understand that. If you tell your kids, are you afraid of putting your credit card number on the internet? They're going to look like you, kind of. Are you using a fax machine now to order free on food, delivery? So it's this, and Travis, Mark had really this vision, this will to execute against that. And most of the time also it's not very personal. It's not about their personal ego or whatever. It's really the passion, the execution to deliver that opportunity for end users.
Absolutely.
That is what fuels their energy. Yeah,
it does. But I think a lot of it's based on data collection as well, isn't it? Because you can provide a kind of a bespoke service then to the customer. Yeah.
I think it's more the fact that most of the time you end up with something that is not possible today, and then you are putting together the sequence of people and technology that enables you to do so. So, for example, you couldn't do Facebook mobile at the scale we got without the iPhone or Android.
Yeah.
If you had started Facebook mobile at the time of BlackBerry, we did start. It was only BlackBerry. Actually, at some point, Facebook for BlackBerry was much bigger than Facebook for iPhone.
Yes, of course.
But if you take e-commerce before dial-up and the digital camera, it just never work.
You need the hardware to facilitate the software.
For example, what I do today, so I work in mobility and it's based on the technology of electric battery. A lot of people have tried to do shared mobility in the city before, but they didn't have the right technology, and that technology is the permanent connectivity for the devices as well as the electric battery. So you have someone like Mark, someone like Travis, they have this vision, they are the bits of technology that are here and there. You have to put them together, and once the service typically works, it looks like magic because no one has ever seen this before. So it's not so much data, it's really putting together the right people and the technology, and that's why you call them tech companies.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's a good point actually. So you had an amazing experience at Facebook, another amazing experience at Uber. Talk us through the period after you left Uber.
I took a few months off. I had a couple of things I wanted to do on my bucket list, and one of them was to spend time in China. The last time I went to China was for eBay. It was a very long time ago. I also went a couple of times for Facebook, but it was just like for manufacturing and things like that. And then now I wanted to spend a month in China to see what. So it's like I know Silicon Valley, I know Europe. What about China? And when I was in China, I saw Ofo and Mobike and these bike sharing schemes, and I thought this is magic. I've got to do this. So I came back to Europe, and we tried to do Ofo Europe, Ofo US also.
Sorry, Henry, are you a keen cyclist then?
No, but I'm again going back to this mobility. living in the city, being a true urban jungle type of person.
It's through your background as being a Parisian, eh?
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was a magic experience.
Yeah.
And I see climate change. I see the crusade against car. We probably have to go in a crusade against pollution. I can't wait for the human species to start doing this.
Yeah.
And I thought I can see how the cities are going to change, and I thought bike is the way to do. And so cities like London, for example, here or Paris, they already had started to invest in infrastructure. They had schemes like Santander Bikes here or Vélib in Paris. And it was the early days, and I thought we could build a service like this. So we tried that with OFO, but it turned out not to be that successful because OFO had so many challenges in China. So then we decided to do it ourselves, and that's how we started Dott.
Right.
So
okay.
post-Uber, it's like, what am I going to do next? Mobility, China, bikes. Okay, can't do OFO in Europe. Let's do it ourselves, and that's how it started.
Right. So OFO became Dott then, yeah?
No, we left OFO.
Right.
And then allow first that we're at OFO, but also at Mobike. We have ex-Mobike people in the company.
You retained a couple of the team and
set
up a new company. Brought in a few more people.
We have ex-Facebook, ex-Uber, ex-OFO.
Wow.
We brought people from Tesla, from VanMoof. We tried to put together the right team to make it happen. So that's how we started.
Wow, okay, so you've obviously got a lot of talent there working. I'm assuming you've accrued a pretty good network of very talented people over the years working in the tech industry. But so you started out with Dott just to confirm, where did this start out? Was this a London-based venture at the time, or were you...
Our first city was Brussels, and then Paris, and then Lyon, and so forth. The most of the operations are in France, and the biggest city for us is Paris. We also operate now in Italy and Germany, but it really started, the service itself really started in France.
Right, yeah. I think Paris would be a really good place to start because it's such a cycling culture. I think Brussels is the same. It's such a cycling culture anyway there, isn't it?
London too. If you look at London, the number of people, I'm so biased now. When I sit at the red light, I count the people on bikes. and somehow I start to manage data. I can tell you how many people I see every morning at Southend at 8:15 when I take the tube. Boom. I see every morning, I count.
Are you based in London then, since the Uber, but you based here full time? Do you have a sort of a family in London?
I live between Paris and London. My kids live here, so that's why I'm here.
Right, so you're back between the two. Right, okay. So, and the operation, is it the head office in Paris?
Yeah. The head office for operations, marketing, and everything end-user facing is Paris. And then we have software engineering and some hardware design, as well as support functions in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam, right, okay. So why did you choose to base the tech team over there then?
So we wanted to start a company with Philippe, who's the current head of engineering.
Yeah. So you wanted to base it around.
And he lives in Amsterdam. And we thought we would build the engineering team around Philippe.
Certainly.
And some of his friends, and that's why we put software engineering in Amsterdam. The other thing is that in Amsterdam it's very easy. Remember what we talked about believing in vision?
Yes, of
course. In Amsterdam, people already have done this transition to a new mobility, electric mobility. People tend to forget that 30, 40 years ago, Amsterdam was a car city, just like London today or Paris today.
Yeah.
And now it's all bikes. More than 50% of the trips in Amsterdam, they're all bikes.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people that live in Amsterdam that truly believe in that is possible. What happened in Amsterdam can happen elsewhere. You have a lot of mechanical engineering people in Netherlands, very good crowd. You have a lot of software engineering also in Amsterdam. It was the perfect magic cocktail to make it happen.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So talk us through the challenges the business has had since you've started.
So I think it's quite consistent with what we talked about with e-commerce and then Facebook and then Uber. Everybody understands the vision that at some point, most of the trips within a city will be done with personal vehicles because people want that freedom, and electric because they don't want cars. Well, it won't be electric cars, it won't be electric bicycles, electric scooters, electric, you name it, but individual small vehicles. So people see it, they get it. Sometimes on weekend they see that vision, and then they see all the difficulties where it's not possible because today most of the room in the city is allocated to cars because you have so many cars already. and people want their freedom, but they don't want to, bike under the rain or you name it. and it's the same story. You have to put together people that truly believe in the vision that will fuel their energy in order to sustain all the difficulties.
Of course, yeah.
The bikes themselves or the scooters, you could find some of that in China. At the beginning, they weren't that great, so we decided not to use any of that. We waited for the right hardware. You can find connectivity. We had to build, at the end of the day, our own IoT connectivity modules.
Yeah.
But you could find some stuff off the shelf.
Which are then linked into the software and the app and things.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it connects the devices to the network.
Mm-hmm.
You can find engineering. We're using Google infrastructure. You can ship things thanks to that so fast. It's amazing.
Yeah, of
compared
course.
to 10 or 20 years ago. And then you already have people that are passionate about this in the cities. All the people that are on private bikes, they are the first advocates for this type of solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about putting it together. What's difficult in mobility is that you want to do it in a sustainable way. So you want to reduce the carbon footprint. You don't want to increase it.
Yeah.
In a safe way. When you put people on the road, it's very difficult sometimes with all these cars moving around. It has to be a reliable experience where you feel safe on it. So we put a lot of attention into this. And then you have to make it, it needs to be, from an ecology standpoint, viable, but also economically standpoint viable. So you need to run the operations in an extremely efficient way.
Yeah.
We have a very unique operations model. A lot of our competitors are now copying what we do, but that makes the operation so efficient that we are actually economically viable as a business. So we are doing good for the planet from an ecology standpoint, and we are doing good from a business standpoint. And the combination of these two things will make the thing grow and grow even more.
So who makes the actual scooters for you then? Have you got a partner manufacturer who does all the hardware stuff?
Some of that is the hardware off the shelf. Some of that is our own custom things.
Right.
Sometimes there's a bit more of it, one way or the other. We have different types of models.
Mm-hmm.
We are soon going to come up with a bike, for example. The bike will be mainly European.
Yeah.
But the scooters really, today they are mainly Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
The software inside is ours, but the manufacturing is Chinese.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got the scooters in all of these countries right now. When are the bikes coming? Or are they already?
No, the bikes sometimes. So we don't want to ship something that is bad from an ecology standpoint, from a safety standpoint, or from an economic standpoint. So we are waiting for the right bike, the right hardware, the right model before we ship, and we hope to do it during this year. We're really live with scooters in France, in Italy, in Belgium, in Germany. We may expand to new countries or new cities very soon.
Yeah. Where in Italy are you?
We're in Turin.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Not Turin. No. I went to Venice last year, and we're going to Rome and Florence in a couple of months. So just out of curiosity. But I think I wanted to ask you about London, because you've got a challenge in London, haven't you, with electric scooters at the moment, which are still, I think, illegal, aren't they?
Yeah, it's illegal.
So what's happening with that?
Yeah. So I think UK will do like all the other countries. They will regulate scooters as a motor vehicle that can run on the street and should be running on the sidewalk. So then all the people that have bought a private scooter for themselves can drive, and this is important for all the people that have done that. Then there'll be a next generation type of regulation for cities. I don't know if it's going to look like the French one or the German one or the Dutch one or you name it, but most of the time it empowers the city to say, I want or I don't want scooters, shared systems I mean. And if you're going to operate a shared infrastructure, this is the code of conduct, or these are the laws, or this is the type of regulation. So I think UK will do both. All the other European countries, they've done both already.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of nationwide regulation that enables scooters, whether they're private or shared. And then there's another type of regulation at the city level that says whether you can run a shared infrastructure of bikes and scooters. In London today, you have shared bikes schemes. Santander, Mobike, Jump, Lime, they're all running schemes for bikes.
Yeah.
And one day it will be both schemes for bikes and for scooters. When? I have no idea.
Well, the electric bikes in London seem to be getting quite popular.
If you go to Islington, you see a lot of people riding.
Yeah. I would sort of say that they're being a bit lazy and just get a normal bike, but but you know, I think if you've got to go to a long distance, it makes sense, doesn't it? So
yeah. So I love the other founders I talk to. They understand culture is really important. They always say that you have to, but sometimes they do it at 4 p.m. on Friday. It becomes a 4 p.m. Friday thing.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other fires to fight.
Absolutely.
We thought we would start it on Monday 9 a.m. So from the get-go, we were extremely clear on the core values of the companies, what it takes to be part of the family that is going to power through all the difficulties in order to make.
Sorry, you reiterate this message on a Monday morning as part of the meeting.
What I mean by Monday 9 a.m. is that when we started the company, maybe one of the first meetings we had wasn't about the connectivity module or the hardware or the paint job or whatever, you name it.
Yeah.
It was, what are the 4 or 5 core values we want this company to be built on? Are we all on the same page?
Yeah.
We didn't tackle that Friday, we tackled that Monday.
Right, yeah, I get you.
Then for new hires, we make sure that when we interview them, when we join the company, we reiterate the values. It's quite important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it becomes quite natural inside the company because you hire people against these values. That's how you lead them. So more or less you get, even if you're in hyper growth and you're hiring people all the time, somehow it gives you this combination of the vision, the strategy, and the core values makes the team that is so diverse. We operate in, we have people from so many countries. We even have people in Singapore, Hong Kong, and China. We have to get them on the same values as people in Amsterdam, Paris, or Milan.
These people work remotely, or are they just in the offices?
No, we have people on the ground in China. Hardware manufacturing is one thing that is important to us.
Yeah, of course.
So we have people over there right now.
Right. How many employees do you have roughly at the moment then?
Worldwide, we're about 160, I think.
Right. Okay. And what have you got in store in terms of growth in 2020?
So for us, there are 2 paths. One is we are going to expand the geographic footprint. We're going to open more cities or more countries. Mm-hmm. And the second thing, we're going to expand the product range. We're going to add bikes on top, electric bikes on top of scooters. Mm-hmm. We think that by expanding the number of cities, we just math. We increase our addressable market. Mm. And then also within cities, what we see is that people that use scooters tend to be different than people that use electric bikes. So by just adding bikes, we kind of double our presence and addressable market. So that's our growth strategy. We have other plans beyond. We think Dott will be something that just enables you to move around the city, whether it's on a hardware that we operate or throughout other services. We want to be connected to public transit. I would love if you can use your Dott account just to get on the tube, or the other way around. You can use your Oyster card to get on a Dott. That would be magic.
Okay, that's interesting.
Would be magic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I could see how that could work for sure. Who would you regard as your competition then? Is it, you may not have a direct competitor, but you have other competition surely in this space, maybe an Uber, for example.
We have direct competitors, people that deploy the same type of vehicle or services.
Yeah.
But then overall, I think what's happening is that today, if you look at a city like London or Paris, you have less than 3% of people that take a bike or scooter, whether it's private or shared every day. 3% is microscopic.
Yeah.
You go to a city like Amsterdam, it's more than 50%. So I don't actually care about what my competitors are doing in the city. What I care is how fast are we going to go from 3% to 50%. When we get to 50%, if I have to share the market with 2, 3, 4%, that's fine. No worries.
You'll probably benefit from that.
We've changed the city. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So the vision is bigger than just the business. It's more about the bigger cause, isn't it? Okay, so let's move back to yourself then. I'm keen to find out about, you've had this very successful career, on another journey now, which seems like it's going in the right direction. What kind of books and development things do you do in your spare time to keep you on this path of constantly learning and continually developing yourself to provide your business with the best possible service? What do you do to keep yourself abreast of what's going on and keeping yourself moving forward?
Well, that's a tough question. So yes, I do read some books. For example, the last one I read is Good to Great. I read that book a long time ago, but I'm reading it again because I really like what they talk about level 3, level 4, level 5 management. I also like the hedgehog concept. I think in this world where we could possibly do too many things at Dott, the hedgehog concept is we are trying to do it just what we know how to do, and we do it extremely well.
It's a great book. I've read that one. The level 5 CEOs is interesting.
Exactly. I think to me the primary challenge is age. In a sense, I've always been lucky to meet much younger people. I'm not that old, but what I mean is that even when I was 34, for example, trusting a 24 CEO with a crazy idea like Facebook turned out to be a good idea.
Yeah.
See, somehow I feel the younger generations, they are not attached to the legacy of the past. I think my first job, I probably had to send faxes, and then I had to do emails, and then I had to do mobile emails, and now I do WhatsApp or Slack. But I've been because I'm always in tech, I tend to use the latest. But for someone my age to go straight from fax to Slack, or to come up with a... So what I mean by that is the more experienced you are, the more you can be attached to the legacy, and the harder it is for you to think what a brand new experience would be without being attached to the past. And that's why you need to watch what these people are, or how they are thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you joined Facebook then, just to move back to that, did you actually interview with Mr. Zuckerberg to go on board with them?
You mean as part of the interview loop to get in?
Yeah. Did you was it working with him that was part of the attraction for you? Is that what you're saying, or was it more about the opportunity that you saw in terms of the quality, the platform they were building?
I thought the Facebook people I met, I was blown away by the quality. I was super impressed with the product. The quality of them as engineers? Or? No, I met many different people. I was interviewed by engineers, by business people, and so forth. Executive, non-executive, doesn't matter. I was blown away by the product. You have to think I work at eBay, and eBay 2007 probably looks a bit like eBay 2019. And so just to keep it simple, and then you have something Facebook. Facebook was really radically different. It was blue and white, super simple to use, when MySpace looked like a Christmas tree. So it was very like orthogonal, disruptive point of view. So you had the different vision, different people, and I thought, I didn't join Facebook to just be Facebook. I joined Facebook to build Facebook Mobile. It was part of my story to tell them, I really believe this thing could be mobile.
What advice would you give to a young tech entrepreneur or a young technical person who's looking to get into the jobs market and build a career similar to what you've had?
All the mistakes I made, it's because I overthought it. So it's like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And all mistakes I made is because I was too afraid. It took me too much time to, for example, to go back to California in 2004 because I was afraid. And I deeply regret not having been there earlier. It took me too much time to, for example, move to Facebook. I had seen the opportunity much earlier. But I wasn't afraid. They were afraid. But they just didn't have enough resources to put on mobile back then. I think the more successful you are, the more you think you're actually in a good spot. And so it's hard to challenge yourself to try to do something very new. And you're afraid but the point is nobody will remember in 10 or 20 years, looking back. You just have to try it. And in Silicon Valley, they really love this concept of I try very hard and possibly I fail very fast, but then it's okay, I'm just going to move on to the next one. Most of the people in Europe, the older they get, we are talking about age. If you take people in your age class, my age class, they are starting to get the clutter of what happens, where's my career, what will happen. They get scared, they get afraid, and they won't take the big bets.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, Yeah, that's interesting. I think what you're saying, just to put some context on it, is correct me if I'm wrong. Is just going with your gut feeling and being prepared to take risks, especially when you're young. Because if it goes wrong, it doesn't make too much of a difference. You can always correct it, can't you?
I kind of disagree on the gut feeling. Just to be clear, I think typically if you see your gut feeling as do I believe in this vision?
Yeah.
And do I believe in the strategy or the execution plan that gets me there?
Yeah.
And okay, fine. But if it's just gut, without thinking what's the vision or what's the execution plan, then okay, fine. For selecting ice cream on Friday night, fine. Chocolate, caramel, I pick. It doesn't matter. But
no.
I think if you're going to invest significant amount of your energy and life into something, you have to believe in a vision. You have to be able to describe to me. A lot of the entrepreneurs I meet, they when they raise money, they tell me, oh, I'm looking for this much to do this, and I don't care about that. I'm trying to, what is this going to look like in 5 years from now? Can you paint it to me? I'm trying to think, is this vision? And then I try to evaluate whether the guy is going to be the right guy to get there. Not because next week he's going to do this and that, and he needs 10,000 to do this and that. That's not how I think.
No, absolutely.
You have to look start from the end point, and then you work yourself backward from that. If your gut says that the end point, you believe in that, okay, fine, you can believe your gut. But not just instinct, oh, I'll just figure it out as it goes. That doesn't work for me.
No, I understand, yeah. Well, that's really good advice. I think, and just my final question is, because I'm really fascinated to get your thoughts on this, is we've been on such a crazy period of change in the last 20 years, going from, you go back to to the year 2000, and the things are unrecognizable to what they are now in terms of the way digital technology has progressed. What do you think the next stage is? We've moved from we've moved onto this digital platform, mobile world in the last 10, 15 years, let's say. What do you think the next a lot of people say it's voice, and there's a lot of things going on about AI and all this kind of thing. Do you think we've come to a point now where we've all the innovation has happened and we're probably going to stabilize for the next 15, 20, 30 years, not much is going to change? Or do you think there's another stage of evolution from a technology perspective that we're going to go through?
I think we are coming up on the early days of something even bigger than the internet. It's going to be incredibly massive. And the way I see it is, so you had the beginning of e-commerce because you could take a digital photo, it was easy to upload it. So you digitize, for example, this mic, and then you post it on the internet, and someone else wants to buy it. And then social networking was, let's digitize the photo, what we're doing, the three of us together, and we post it on the internet, and people want to interact with that. Uber was, we digitize the cars, and then someone wants to order the cars, right? And what we do in mobility is we digitize bikes and scooters, electric bikes, and people want to use them. The next frontier is they're going to digitize your body. They'll understand everything about how you breathe, what you eat. Yeah. Today it feels completely sci-fi, but if you look at the speed at which it's going, you will find very soon billionaires that will do, throughout 360 tests every Monday, maybe, to see how they can improve. Because they have all the money, they want time. Yeah. So after the billionaires will be the millionaires and so forth. It's going to come down. It will go even faster than mobile. You think more.
It's scary, isn't it?
10, 15 years ago, mobile, okay, fine, the early days. But I think in 10, 15 years from now, you'll know exactly what's going on in your body. Maybe you have a microchip inside you, just like we put a connectivity module on a scooter. And then maybe, so that's just digitizing your health. And then so what do you do with that? Big data is going to be massive. The impact will be, it's not ordering a mic, to play with your friends, or we call a podcast. It's going to be about changing how you live. The amount of energy you have at 10 a.m. They'll digitize that.
They'll tell you what your carbon footprint is at the end of each day, maybe,
exactly,
as well.
Exactly. They will be able to tell you why I'm hungry at 4 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. So.
I think there's an element of this which already exists. I was reading about a I've got a smartwatch on now. This is just a Fitbit, but I mean, there was one I was reading about, and I think it's in prototype stage, which is a smartwatch which has some sort of microscopic thing going into your arm, which tests your, it does real-time analysis on your blood,
and tells you what your lipid levels are like, what your oxidated oxygen levels are, and things like that. Vitamin levels, I don't even know what the analysis covers, but there's a company working on this right now, and there's probably companies working on lots of similar things.
So what they do at the beginning is they digitize just the information, and then they'll find a use for that information. So maybe it's just giving you commands on how to better manage your lifestyle, what to eat, and so forth. But then they start to change parts of your body. My mom, for example, they changed her knee. Okay, it's not a robotic knee. It's whatever, I don't know, carbon fiber, plastic, what they put.
Of course.
I'm not a medical student. But you see, we can already swap out parts. So now, think of it. You know exactly the level of energy that you need, how to get healthy. We can change the input.
Yeah.
We are going to change the output.
I think what you're saying there is that we're going to get a lot better at predicting the future. The future of our health, the future of our society, the future of everything.
Okay, so you see, and this is going to be much bigger than, okay, let's order, I don't know, a new mattress on the internet and let's call it Casper.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's interesting. I watched a documentary on Amazon the other day, and it was talking about how Jeff Bezos, who was doing this stuff around the same time as when you come into sort of e-commerce yourself, I think around the sort of mid-90s, and he was talking about collecting data on customers. He was going to sort of venture capital meetings in Silicon Valley, and he was talking about collecting data on customers, and they were like, well, what are you on about? They didn't really know what he was talking about. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of a new concept, but that was only 1996 or 1995 or something. And he just had a long-term vision and was leveraging this concept of collecting data on customers to predict their buying behavior. And I think that was probably Amazon were one of the first companies to properly leverage this data collection thing and do it and sort of make it work in their favor, which obviously you carried on at various points in your career. So I think that's probably the start of the journey that we're talking about here, isn't it?
20 years of what they call information technology. I think the next 20 years is going to be bioinformation technology. If you're 16-year-old today, you shouldn't go in software engineering. You got 25 years of people that just did that in front of you. You should go in bio-software engineering.
Bio-software engineering. Yeah. That's an interesting.
Don't move mattresses on the internet.
Well, Henri, look, I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been a fantastic show. Thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy chap. You've got a lot on your plate at the moment, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavours. And I wish you all the best in your cause, because I think it's a really noble and brilliant cause. If people want to find out about you and find out about Dott, where do they go?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Moissinac, my last name handle, and then www.ride.com.
Brilliant.
The best is to just download the and try it very soon in London, but for now in Paris, Brussels, Lyon, Turin, and Munich.